In the previous video in this series, we learned that while all diets initially work, they all inevitably also fail. All of the diets act on the short-term cause of obesity, insulin. Cutting calories lowers insulin. Cutting carbs lowers insulin. Exercising more lowers insulin. Eating less processed foods lowers insulin. Weight gain is caused by insulin. So lowering insulin will lead to weight loss. For some people, this is all that's needed. But for others, the weight returns with a vengeance because the dietary change did not address the long-term aspect of weight gain and obesity. In this video in the series, we'll look at a few things that you should definitely not do in order to achieve long-term sustainable weight loss. The information in this video comes from the blog of Dr. Jason Fung at Intensive Dietary Management. And again, I'll be glossing over most of the science behind my statements, but you can always watch the videos in my other series for a deeper explanation and understanding. And I am still doing that Amazon gift card giveaway, which I'll explain at the end of the video. So, what's the first thing we don't want to do on our fresh attempt at long-term weight loss? Turn on the television or search the internet for lose weight fast or quick weight loss, and I guarantee you'll find the latest and greatest miracle food, drug, or cure for obesity. Eat this berry or take this pill, and your fat will magically melt away. We all know there's no such thing, right? I mean, if a single pill or a magic berry could help everyone lose weight, then why aren't we all skinny? But people still believe it and continue trying them because we desperately need it to be true. We've been living and eating on this planet for a very, very long time. What are the odds that some new plant or berry is found that will suddenly and irreversibly burn all of our excess fat away? Sure, chia and acai and quinoa all have health benefits, but they're not going to make you thin or healthy just because you eat them before ordering at McDonald's. Part of the problem here is that there has been a rise in so-called fake studies. Data can be manipulated to prove what you need it to prove. An example of this comes from a study on green coffee bean published in 2012. Green coffee bean was one of those miracle foods that would make us all slender reeds. But it didn't. And 2 years later, in 2014, the company producing green coffee bean extract settled a lawsuit for $3.5 million and retracted the study, admitting that they had misrepresented the data. That's really just a fancy way of saying that they lied. The company had hired researchers to study the effects of green coffee bean extract on weight loss. Unfortunately, the results didn't give them what they wanted. So they just changed the weights of the subjects in the trials until they did get the results they wanted. Then, if that wasn't bad enough, they hired 2 respected doctors to put their names on the study to make it seem respectable. And sadly, this is not uncommon. A recurring theme on this channel is follow the money, and this is no different. Another example of the miracle weight loss cure was the additive Sensa. Invented by Dr. Alan Hirsch, the claim was that you only needed to sprinkle Sensa on your food before you ate it. No need to change your diet. Just sprinkle these crystals all over it and they'll make you feel more full and you'll lose weight. And did people lose weight? No. But the makers of Sensa did lose $26.5 million in a settlement and promptly went bankrupt. Because we as a people so desperately want to believe these claims, there are always those who will prey upon us. Kevin Trudeau, who promoted a book titled The Weight Loss Cure They Don't Want You to Know About, settled a lawsuit for $7.3 million and was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his part in that scam. We want weight loss to be simple, but so few people actually understand how we gain weight in the first place that they can't give the proper advice about how to lose it. And that brings us to our next thing to not do. Tell me if this sounds familiar. The best diet is the one you can stick to. Or how about you can eat everything in moderation? I hear those all the time, even from doctors. That's almost the equivalent of the previous miracle cures. So if I love sweets, then my diet can consist of only cake and ice cream because that's what I can stick to? No. And now we're hearing the mantra that all diets are equal. So let's just take this line of thinking and apply it to another disease. Heart disease, perhaps. It's pretty well known that both quitting smoking and increasing exercise can aid with cardiovascular disease. So you should probably do both of those, right? Your doctor doesn't say, well, I know you love to smoke, so just do whatever you can stick with for your cardiovascular disease. Or, yes, you have heart disease, so just smoke in moderation. No one would accept that. But with obesity, we just take that kind of advice as brilliance. And that brings us to the third thing to not do. Weight gain has many factors, so weight loss also has many factors. Do calories cause weight gain? Yes, partially. Do carbohydrates? Yes, partially. Do processed foods? Yes, partially. Does sugar? Yes, partially. Meat? Fat? Protein? Partially. So why focus on any one of those? With every other disease, the treatment is generally multifaceted, except for some reason with obesity. In cancer, the treatment is a combination of things, chemotherapy and radiation, for example. In heart disease, it might be even more things, blood pressure, cholesterol, smoking. You don't just lower blood pressure and then let cholesterol skyrocket while smoking a pack a day. But with our weight, we, and I mean all of us, doctors included, we focus on one small part of weight loss and cling to it with fanatical ferocity. Low-carb followers don't want to talk about calories. Low-calorie followers don't want to hear about carbohydrates. We already know that both diets work, and both diets fail. So instead of spending so much time and effort trying to figure out which diet is best, why can't we just do both? Wait, what? Eat fewer carbs and fewer calories? What kind of witchcraft is this? I'd much rather sprinkle sensa on my coffee beans. All body processes are controlled by hormones. As we've already determined, weight gain is controlled by the hormone insulin. Insulin signals your body that it's time to store fat. So when insulin levels are high, you store fat. And when insulin levels are low, you burn fat. Whether or not you gain or lose weight is not left up to some random external factors like how many calories you eat or whether or not you exercise. Weight gain or loss is not under our conscious control. Just as we can't consciously control the beating of our hearts or the temperature of our bodies. We've discussed in the last video how changing your diet to foods that keep insulin low will address the short-term problem of weight gain and help you to lose weight. But this ultimately will not address the body weight set point, and so the weight will pile back on regardless of how devoted you are to your diet. The main problem is that all foods to some degree raise insulin. So how do you allow your insulin levels to come down and stay down long enough for your body to burn that excess fat? You don't eat all the time. Let's finish up this video by looking back at the recent history of obesity in a few countries. The obesity epidemic didn't really get started until the 1970s in the United States. So, what were people eating before that kept them so thin? Well, how about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on white bread, sodas with sugar, Oreos, pasta, and ice cream? And no, they weren't counting calories. They weren't counting carbs. And they certainly weren't drinking kale smoothies or scarfing down quinoa. And yet, very low incidence of obesity and type 2 diabetes. That's weird, right? Well, how about China, a country who in the past 20 years has gained enough new diabetes patients to match the population of Australia? What did they eat in the 1980s before they began their own obesity epidemic? Rice, and more rice. 300 grams per day on average. And how about the Okinawans in Japan? 80% of their diet was sweet potatoes. And you guessed it, no obesity. Ireland, beer and potatoes. And until recently, no obesity. France, they love their bread, no obesity. So what do all these hyper-carbed societies have in common that kept them thin? Well, it wasn't acai or green coffee bean. They didn't eat all the time. They allowed their insulin levels to come down so that they could burn the fat that they were storing. This allowed them to avoid the long-term weight gain problem, insulin resistance. When you're eating, insulin is high. This stores fat. When you're not eating or fasting, insulin is low. This burns fat. If you can achieve the proper balance between these two states, then your weight will remain stable. If you're spending more time eating, then you have a greater time of high insulin and you will gain weight. However, if you spend less time eating, not eating less, but eating less often, then you will have a greater time of low insulin and you will lose weight. Just say it out loud and see if it makes sense. I want to lose weight, so I should eat all the time. Or, I want to lose weight, so I should eat less often. Which of those would make more sense to a 5-year-old? Don't eat all the time. Now in the next video, we'll discuss the number one change you can make to your diet for weight loss. So be sure to subscribe and enable alerts so you know when that video posts. And if you like the video, please hit the thumbs up button, as that does help me with exposure. And as for the giveaway, every 2,500 new subscribers, I'll be giving away a $25 Amazon gift card. The next milestone is 12,500, where I'll give away 1 gift card. At 15,000, I'll give away 2. At 17,500, I'll give away 3. And at 20,000, I'll give away 4. Then we'll start over again. To enter, all you need to do is subscribe to the channel and leave a like and comment on this video. It's that simple. Just my way of giving back to all those who've supported me and this information. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep being a loser.